Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we are right up to date with NAMM 2019, and this is going to be an impromptu jam between Robert Randolph on pedal steel guitar and Daniel Donato on his telly. So let's get these guys up on screen and see what goes down.
Back a little bit, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Get it, baby. I'm just going to jump in here because this is music at the grassroots level of just getting an instrument and having a jam. And I just want to point out that when we start this jam, it's great that we can see it from the beginning. So you can see how each musician just gets the lay of the land, and we're jamming in E for a good minute, just over a minute. But then when Robert goes into his solo and Daniel changes to A, and as soon as that change happens, they're both on the same page. Instantly, Robert starts playing some great lead, but then with Daniel's choppy rhythm that he's throwing in, we're now into that blues progression. And this is the great thing about the blues, that you can have two musicians that can instantly start jamming and laying down some great playing. Everybody knows, I say everybody, the two players, they'll know the progression, you know the changes, and you know exactly where you're going with it, so you can start to communicate musically. And the blues is one of those genres of music that is just universal in bringing people together, because you don't have to know loads of theory, you don't need to have a meeting before you start playing as to where you're going, what the progression's going to be, what the time signature is. You can just start playing straight away. We do get two for the price of one in this particular video, starting with Daniel and his technique. The choppy rhythm that he throws in, just starting the jam off, just gets that groove going and really does keep it motoring the whole time. It's subtle because we haven't got a great deal of overdrive on Daniel's sound here, but those upstrokes that he throws in combined with palm muting and getting that percussive sound from the guitar helps to keep that rhythm going, which is going to be really difficult considering there's no rhythm section here. But we have got a situation here with two great lead guitarists that can then sit back into that rhythm roll when they're not playing lead and just keep it moving along. You'll see in Daniel's technique a lot of hybrid picking and getting a lot of country chops in here, really clean tones, so there's nowhere to hide. Daniel's technique is top notch on the fretboard. We're getting such great expression with the playing, with the clean tone. We can hear absolutely everything that's laid down on the fretboard. But also, when Daniel gets into his alternate picking, all of the techniques he has at his disposal, so it means that he can take that lead anywhere he wants to. But also, look at the versatility and the diversity in his playing when we come to the amount of lines he's throwing together, because it's just not a one-stop shop, because we've got a loose jam here. It's just totally free form. This isn't two guys playing something that they've rehearsed for hours and then are going to play for 5 minutes and just repeat lines. We've got two guys that are just playing off the cuff, and Daniel's versatility with the lines is the thing that really shows, as well as that top technique. Focusing in on Robert as well, he's got that wide vibrato, gives it that unique expression when he plays. Rhythm-wise, he keeps it all moving along just as well as Daniel does. This is why you can listen to this jam and you don't need that rhythm section, because you can tap your foot along to it. Everybody knows exactly where they are in the blues progression at all times because of the rhythm work going on underneath each lead section. So we've got Robert with the finger picks on. You'll see here that he's using that thumb, first finger and second finger, and some of the runs that he throws together, it's really cool because sometimes you get the musicians simulating what each of them have previously played and just getting a slight variation on that, and it's great to hear the pedal steel version of what Daniel's playing and just the way that they interact musically. And these are all split-second decisions, and music is like a language, and when you've got two guys that speak it really well, you're going to get a great conversation. Another thing I want to draw your attention to is something that's nothing to do with the music, but something that is a great indication of professionalism and rehearsal, and enough rehearsal, because there's a point in this video where a security guard comes in and you can see that Daniel just looks over because he's encroaching onto the stage, even though they're the same height as everybody else here. But that kind of thing will happen when you play live that will throw you off, and this is where rehearsal and getting so used to playing live is essential. There will always be something that happens that you are not banking on that might throw you off your playing, and when you've played long enough in front of a crowd, you've pretty much seen everything that's going to distract you. So when something like that does happen, it doesn't throw you off your playing. If anything, your subconscious mind takes over and the playing continues exactly as it did with Daniel. And if you find that you do play guitar and you perform in front of people, but sometimes you lose your concentration or you get thrown off by something that might happen, the only solution to that is playing more live so that you get good at dealing with the distractions in exactly the same way as when you're practicing an alternate pick run on your guitar. Your brain is learning to deal with that information and you're getting better at it. So when you get distracted by something, the more you get distracted, the more you play live, the more your brain can deal with those distractions and you're not as affected as you would have been the first time it happened. Just quickly, a side point I want to make about if you have started performing recently in front of people, or if you've been doing it for a while even, a mistake that a lot of people make in the rehearsal studio is they'll get in there, set up their gear, stand in a circle formation, go through the set, and everything sounds great, and you're looking at each other whilst you're performing, and then they come to play live, and they realize that now they're not looking at each other. You haven't got that visual communication. You've now got to look at your audience. And it is so different looking into an audience rather than communicating with each other musically, but visually as well. So when you rehearse, if you are rehearsing for a particular show, set up your gear as it would be on stage. Rehearse to the wall if you have to, but setting up all in the right direction, because then you'll get an appreciation of your guitar sound. You might be set up on the night in front of the bass amp, so it'll give you an appreciation of all these things that are different. But just the way that Daniel dealt with that little intrusion over his shoulder just really shows that professional attitude, but that is through just playing night after night and being so solid technique wise that everything on the fretboard can be subconscious when you need it, when that conscious mind is just distracted for a split second. But let's get back into this jam. I was going to call it a performance, but just a freeform jam that they're laying down. Have it. And this jam does go on for a little bit longer, as you can see from the video. I'm going to put the link to this video in the description below so you guys can check out the whole thing if you want to. And just putting the attention back to Robert as well on that lead, because using that first and second finger and the thumb in combination to throw together such quick lines, the accuracy with the slide that he's got is so impressive. There's a few lines that he throws together there where Daniel laid down the gauntlet with a little alternate pick run that he just repeats, and slightly later on Robert then repeats that exact same line. And that's what I'm talking about, that musical conversation going on the whole time between two great players. Just to put the spotlight on Daniel for a second, because he's a guy that I've had contact with, and He's just a really cool guy, really nice guy. And he started playing guitar age 12, and then at age 14, he realized that's what he wanted to do, and then started busking for 8 hours a day. And I think he lived just outside Nashville. I say that he started playing when he was 12 years of age. He's still in his early 20s now, so it wasn't all that long ago, maybe about 11 years or something like that. The thing about Daniel is that he strikes me as an old school musician, but in the current times. And he's one of those guys that is so easy to get along with, especially if you're a musician yourself, because the industry at the moment, the music industry, is almost separate to musicians. And when you talk to another musician, you have so many things that you can connect on and connect with musically. But Daniel is one of those guys that just went to watch bands, and especially one band, the Don Kelly Band, and he'd go into Nashville and check out that band at Robert's. J.D. Simo was the guitarist at the time with the Don Kelly Band when Daniel would go to watch them, and he said that it was the first guitarist that he saw up close, especially a guitarist of that ability, that he could really get an appreciation of the playing really close up. So that really inspired him, and he certainly has put in his hours of practice, but he also went to watch that band for every week for 3 years and gave them his card all the time. Very much something that used to happen. Certainly something that I did in the 90s when you go and watch your favorite hard rock band. If you can get them in a small venue, then you might be able to get one of your CDs to them or give them a card or try and meet them after the gig. All of these old school ways of doing it, that's very much how Daniel approaches his music career and all the things that he does to try and get a little bit more exposure for himself. So after a few years of checking out the Don Kelly Band, Daniel did get a call. So all of that perseverance did pay off, and J.D. Simo had gone off to make his own band. So now Daniel was playing a 4-hour set, and he didn't have any breaks in that whole time. It was 100 songs, and this is something that I alluded to earlier with getting put off playing live. If you've played live enough, nothing will throw you off. And Daniel's one of those original artists that wants to write his own material and isn't going to be happy just playing covers endlessly. And he has recently released his EP called Starlight, and he released that at the beginning of this month. I'm going to put a link to that in the description and also pin it to the top of the comments, because it's something that comes up in videos when I'm talking about country players and country music, because that's very much where Daniel's sound sits. A lot of people have said about modern country music isn't like it used to be, and I'm talking about the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. It has all kind of morphed into something different nowadays, and Daniel's sound is bedded in that old school country sound, but Daniel has certainly put in the work to have everything that he needs going forward in order to advance in his career and with his songwriting, with his original releases. And as I said, he's just a really cool guy, and the way that he approaches playing as well, and explaining his techniques, but how he approaches the techniques. Something that Daniel has said before when he's been interviewed, that just spend 20 minutes, if you are working on hybrid picking, for example, spend 20 minutes on that technique with a run that you're familiar with your normal picking style, whether that just be alternate picking or economy picking, but then throw in the hybrid picking and just do it for 20 minutes and do that every day. Don't oversaturate your brain. Don't try and do it for 3 hours straight, because after 20 minutes, you'll start making mistakes and you'll start getting frustrated. Sometimes you'll have a 5 or 10 minute spell where you do really well with this new technique, and then it starts to go downhill. As soon as it starts to go downhill, take a break and maybe work on other techniques. That's what a lot of players do who are technically great on the fretboard. They'll work on one technique at a time for a short duration. So something a bit different tonight, just a jam, and it's bang up to date, 2019. If you get a chance, and if you're into country music, check out Daniel's Sound. Have a look at that EP that I mentioned that I'll link to below this video, but check out his website and also check out Robert. You can tell from this video what a great pedal steel guitar player he is. But thank you guys so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!